Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Steps Your Small Business Can Take to Manage Energy Costs. I'm going to begin with some housekeeping. Today's webinar is being recorded and a version will be posted to CUB's YouTube page for public viewing after the fact. I also want to acknowledge webinar support today from CUB's Marketing Coordinator, Evolution Marketing. Lisa Giesenbauer will collect your questions in the Q&A at the end after our panelists make their presentations. If you have technical questions or questions that you may not want shared with everyone here, please send them directly to Lisa Giesenbauer and include your contact information. She'll make sure either a CUB staffer or one of our speakers will follow up with you to answer your question. We have enabled closed captioning on the webinar. To access it, just click on the box at the bottom of your screen that has a CC inside of it. My name is Tom Content, and I'm Executive Director with the Citizens Utility Board of Wisconsin, and I'm here because consumer protection is critical with our utility service. The money you pay to your utility should be affordable for you and your family and your business, and it should be spent responsibly by the utility and result in reliable service. CUB represents all of us in Wisconsin, residential and small business customers, and we advocate for all of these things as well as fairness. If you're not a member and think this is important too, please consider supporting our work and become a member today. First, a bit about CUB. We are Wisconsin's consumer advocate for residential and small business customers. As I mentioned, we've been around since 1979. We were created by the legislature to level the playing field at the Public Service Commission, where critical decisions are made about energy costs and what our energy system looks like. We advocate for affordability and safe, reliable service. Our main focus is our regulatory work at the Public Service Commission, but we are greatly interested in education and outreach, and this webinar series is part of that. I would like to take a moment to thank all of our promotional partners for this series during Energy Awareness Month, including Be Local Wisconsin, Focus on Energy, MREA, Renew, Vernon County Energy District, Wisconsin Conservative Energy Forum, Wisconsin Eco Latinos, the Wisconsin Energy Institute at UW-Madison, and the Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council. I'd like to now turn it over to Francisco Sayu from Renew Wisconsin to lead today's session as our MC.
Thank you, Tom. It is a pleasure to be here. My name is Francisco Sayu. I am the Emerging Technology Director for Renew Wisconsin. Renew Wisconsin is a nonprofit organization working to support energy efficiency, renewable energy in Wisconsin. We have for over 30 years, Renew have been working to build a stronger, healthier, and more vibrant state of Wisconsin through development of renewable energy. I am excited to be here to talk about things that businesses can do. We're going to focus on showcasing lessons learned and practical actions that Wisconsin businesses have been taking to operate more efficiently, to save money, to adopt innovative technologies, and to bring renewable energy projects. And with this, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Tim Wasmer. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, so Tim Wasmer is the president and CEO of the Wasmer company. So Tim, the floor is yours.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much. If we can get started, let's move to our slides. So a lot of people talk about low-hanging fruit, and they think about LED lighting, they think about VFDs, and a lot of those things are done. And the first thing people think about is we're done. As a company, we're done. There's nothing else to do. And the thing is, the nice thing about getting rid of the low-hanging fruit and getting rid of those branches, if you visualize a tree, is that the bigger opportunities are now more visible. It just takes a little bit more time. So one of the things is actually doing regular treasure hunts with your employees. And we're trying to create a culture around and education around what does the energy cost us, because we can play a part in it. Once the low-hanging fruit is done, most of the rest of the work isn't capital intensive. It's more process and procedures, I should say. Can we go to the next slide, please? Keeping, one of the biggest things is being able to understand what is all in the facility. And otherwise, what we do is we chase shiny objects. I attend a lot of energy meetings, and people get distracted. They start talking about opportunities that they can have in the facility. And to me, that's just chasing shiny objects. It's purely doing a complete assessment of anything that consumes water, natural gas, and electricity. And when you're doing that process of actually cataloging it, you'll find opportunities. From that, you end up creating priorities, and then you can estimate the return on investment for each one of those opportunities. Again, before you ever bring contractors in, manufacturers in, or waste anybody's time, create a plan. If we can go to the next slide, please. So one of the things is the utility bill analysis, being actually able to educate all the employees and, more importantly, the executive leadership of how you're paying for the electricity. A lot of companies and a lot of individuals, even at your home, it's hard to understand what you're paying for. And being able to educate yourself on what you're paying for is crucial. It helps you to make good decisions. It allows you to put yourself in control. There are fees that you're paying for because of the way you're using the electricity, for an example. Creating a metric for the widgets out the door. There's a great tool. If you're a larger company, part of the Strategic Energy Management Program, there's a great tool through Focus on Energy. It's called the ENPI tool, where it can actually allow you to predict your utility bills. Once you can predict the utility, because normally the utility bill comes weeks after the month is over, that information's way too late, right? So being able to predict the utility bill plus or minus 10%, and if it's way off whack, you know what you got to look at. Plus, more importantly, is it's going to be an improved work environment. Being able to not, because it's not a good feeling not knowing what to do. This way you get to create a plan. We can go to the next, please. So this is a program. I won't dig into it much, but on-site optimization is providing personnel to go on to job sites and run through a program like this. But this is our program. I'm being very transparent, and it's in a sequential order to be able to know how to get from A to B without having to repeat steps. We can go to the next step, please. So, as you know, you have a lot of equipment in your facilities. And if you look at ways to do projects, there's typically three buckets. One is low cost, no cost, that's process procedures. The second bucket is minor upgrades. And the third bucket is major upgrades. But all of these things have huge opportunities for saving because it's perpetual. Every one of the savings are, they continue year after year. Can we go to the next slide, please? Can we go back one? I'm sorry. Perfect. I apologize for that. What we normally do is say the next one, please, Lisa. Normally what we say is if it's process procedure related, that's usually a 1-year payback. It's because there's no capital deployed. The second bucket that I talked about, minor upgrades, those usually have a 2-year payback because you typically have all the infrastructure in place, but you just need to do some basic controls, connections, integrations amongst equipment. And the third one, where it's capital improvements, that is the lowest return on investment. That's usually that 3-year payback or 33% ROI. And it's amazing how we always want to target those big capital projects where we have to put a lot of money towards it. But yet our greatest opportunities, your greatest opportunity, is to look at process procedures and integrating equipment. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, for talking to us about the importance of making a plan for your energy investments and then highlighting how you can look at the financial benefits to inform that plan. I appreciate that insight. If we could go to the next slide, please. Now, I would like to transition to our second presenter. The next presenter is Geri Waack. Geri is the Director of eMobility Solutions for EnTech Solutions. Geri, the floor is yours.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, a little bit more in detail about where Tim left off. You know, EnTech Solutions, we really focus on clean energy solutions within our industry. Today, we'll talk a lot about eMobility and how that plays into the ecosystem relative to electrical demand, but looking to tackle our process from 3 different angles for our clients. And really, it's a balance between cost, resiliency, and sustainability. Operationally focused cost is important. Being able to predict some energy cost is something that's critical to our clients. And then resiliency, of course, you know, as we bring eMobility into more of our mainstream day-to-day, I think that resiliency piece is really critical. So looking at products and opportunity to be able to control some of that destiny within your facility is important. And then sustainability, I think that one, a lot of the drivers behind electrification today may stem from sustainability. But if you look at where we're headed with it, it really is responsible on all of our parts to be responsible with the resources that we have available to us, whether that be electrical, water, or any of the others that Tim had mentioned previously. So really just looking to focus on what that looks like and taking some of the energy play into what we see with our space within eMobility today. So looking at how we operate, you know, really just focusing on the vehicle industry itself. It's really a follow the vehicle mindset. So this isn't something we can, you know, where you put a gas station in on the corner and everybody can access it. Every place that vehicle goes, we need to be able to accommodate relative to infrastructure. So Lisa, if you could go to the next slide. A lot of our work is direct with vehicle manufacturers, equipment manufacturers from the charging perspective. I'm really taking that opportunity to create that roadmap for the path of that vehicle, making sure that we've got sustainable infrastructure in place as this market continues to grow. And on the next slide, I won't go into all of the detail. One of the things we feel is beneficial and value added within the space today is our ability to facilitate this process end to end. You know, Tim mentioned a lot about understanding utility and infrastructure definitely takes a big part of that. So we always start with that front end assessment, really helping our clients understand their current energy usage so that we can then help them steer them towards a path for sustainable electrification. Some of the things we talk to our clients about, the EV charger itself is another end-of-line device, but the power that's required to support that can come from a multitude of places. So I'll talk a little bit more about what some of that clean energy looks like as we jump into the next slide. I think microgrids is another term that a lot of people hear in the space today. For all intents and purposes, a microgrid is basically an independent energy system. It's intended to serve a local device, a local area relative to power that is needed. So kind of combining what we've got here with eMobility and what we have been able to create around distributed energy sources, we feel like that microgrid is a valuable piece of the ecosystem here. They can be operated off-grid, which simply means that we've created other distributed energy sources like the solar array that you see here. We also have battery energy storage options. There's a number of different ways that we can collect alternative energy sources to be able to power that microgrid. And then also the grid tied capability is always an option, where you would have dependency on that local utility, just like you do when you power your buildings today. So kind of bringing that all together in the next slide, one of the things that I think has been critical, specific to eMobility, and this is an example of a project that we did right here in Wisconsin, up in Neenah for Bergstrom Automotive. The automotive industry in general has a lot of different requirements specific to electrification. So one of the things that Bergstrom has done in being proactive is it got charging infrastructure within their facilities today, and then looking at the impact of what those chargers require to operate. They pretty much have to be on demand when vehicles need to be charged. So there's opportunity times to be able to do that more effectively than others. So we were able to work with the Bergstrom team. We did connect some of their charging infrastructure to one of our microgrids that's shown here on the screen. Inside that cabinet, there are batteries that store energy that is produced from that solar array that you see in the bottom picture. All of that comes together so that Bergstrom's able to facilitate charging of their electric vehicles off-grid. This one does not rely on grid dependency. There is an alternative natural gas generator that is connected to this system. It's simply because of the elements that we're in here in Wisconsin. Solar energy can be somewhat unpredictable, so that's meant as a backup source. But about 47 megawatt hours of solar energy is created off of this system in a given calendar year, which allows Bergstrom to charge about 1,000 vehicles off of this system without relying on grid dependency. So those are some things, I think, just tying all of this together, really understanding that utility usage and what your power looks like today, and then creating opportunities like this one to be able to help reduce that demand and still be able to provide the support necessary for Bergstrom's clients. So that's what I've prepared. I appreciate the time today, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A to follow. Thanks, Francisco.
Yeah, thank you, Geri. This is fascinating stuff. Thank you for reinforcing the value of planning your energy investments before you start the work, and also working with the right partners. I love the work that your organization does. I was actually earlier today doing another event with Wisconsin Public Service Corporation, and I actually highlighted one of the projects that you guys built. I was able to see a demonstration project you have in Madison over at Metcalf with one of the microgrids, and I actually got to charge my EV at one of those projects. And I also showcased the fact that you have transitioned some of your service fleet to electric vehicles. I believe you have probably 13 electric vehicles now in your fleet, which is a story that I'm definitely interested in following. So, thank you for the great work that you do. Our next speaker will be Kyle Thomas. Kyle is Outreach Manager for Commercial and Industrial Services for Focus on Energy. Kyle, welcome to the panel.
Hey, thanks for the welcome. Good to be here. I thought today I would present a little bit on the overview of Focus on Energy and just ways that small businesses can really take advantage of what they have to offer. So implementing energy efficiency projects can be pretty complex sometimes, but programs such as Focus on Energy exist to truly assist as much as possible. So for those who aren't really aware, Focus on Energy has been Wisconsin's primary energy efficiency and renewable program since 2001. So over 20 years now it's been in existence. Really, it's just there to empower people and businesses of Wisconsin to make smart energy decisions that have long-lasting economic benefits. Over 107 electric and natural gas utilities participate in this program in the state of Wisconsin, so it is far and wide-reaching. All of the information that Focus on Energy has, the resources, financial incentives that are all benefit any Wisconsinite, they can be used by anybody that's in a participating utility. So I really stress that businesses and customers utilize it as much as possible. So on that same vein, I will kind of dig into the next slide, please. So, the key way you're going to end up utilizing Focus on Energy is through the financial support. So, prescriptive incentives are what Focus on Energy calls our standard incentives for, equipment retrofits. So generally, if you're taking out an existing boiler, replacing it with a new high efficiency boiler, there is a fixed incentive rate that Focus on Energy will pay you as long as the equipment meets certain incentive eligibility requirements, such as efficiency, size, hours of use, things like that. So I do also just want to stress that, Focus on Energy isn't a tax credit, nor is it a credit on your utility bill. It's a physical check that you will actually get in the mail after your project's fully completed from Focus on Energy for, the pre-approved incentive amount. So really, it's there as almost a cashback program for, giving you that incentive to install this project and move forward with it. So next slide, please. So in cases where, it might not be a project that you're swapping out one for one, or maybe it's, changing around a technology type, maybe even reconfiguring some of the process in, say, a manufacturing facility or something like that, we might not meet those prescriptive guidelines per se. So Focus on Energy does offer custom incentives, which also includes most renewable energy technologies as well, besides solar PV. So any wind, biomass, biogas, we would also use custom incentives. The main point I want to mention with custom incentives is that pre-approval has to be received from Focus on Energy before any equipment's even purchased or any work begins. So definitely reaching out to Focus on Energy as early as possible with any project that you have in mind is always best. We don't want to miss out on any potential incentives or anything like that. So, typically custom projects have to have a payback between 1 and 10 years, which is really why Focus on Energy has to do some of the legwork in advance to make sure that the project makes sense for customers financially. So if we can go to the next slide, we'll sort of talk about, the technical assistance that Focus on Energy really provides. So I mentioned reaching out to the program. There's no cost to reaching out, asking questions. We have a team of dedicated energy advisors for, every market sector, sporadically located throughout the state of Wisconsin. So, any energy advisors can really help you, identifying, potential projects or energy saving opportunities. We can even help, calculate ROI, simple payback for any proposed projects you might have, help you understand utility bills and just ways that you're using energy in your building. And then, obviously also assisting with the application process to receive the incentives you might be eligible for. So, in the end as well, we're also available to, provide and facilitate any sort of social media posts or online articles, even do large incentive check presentations at the end if you're interested in doing more marketing and PR work. It's very important nowadays to make sure that we're promoting these types of projects. So, definitely reach out. Energy advisors are here to help, no cost. So just want to stress that enough. If we can move to the next slide. So besides our team of energy advisors that we have working directly with Focus on Energy, we also have a network of trade allies who are basically contractors that are, electricians, plumbers, manufacturers, distributors. We'll work with them as well. They actually get, frequent training through Focus on Energy. They're aware of the process, the incentive application process. So it's always a good idea to, maybe start, getting some proposals from some registered trade allies as well. It's not necessarily required that you work with a trade ally in order to receive incentives or anything from Focus on Energy. I've definitely worked with a lot of customers directly as well, just being as an energy advisor. But, working with a trade ally also does, accommodate some of that as well. So we do keep a list. There's a link there, but I think Lisa can probably include that hyperlink as well in the chat box. But that'll also allow you to search our registered trade ally list and find specifically who you might want to work with too. So that's about all I had prepared today. So I just want to thank you again for allowing me to be part of this. My contact information will be provided at the end of the presentation as well. So if you have any focus on energy related questions or a project in mind you might want to get started on, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I will hand it back over to Francisco to begin our next segment.
Thank you so much, Kyle, and thank you for that great information. I have known the Focus on Energy program for several years, and I know it's a great program. It supports individuals, families, and businesses with energy savings or energy savings work or work that results in saving energy. But it also supports a lot of jobs. I was looking at the jobs report for Wisconsin earlier this week, and Wisconsin has a lot of jobs, the clean energy jobs are in the energy efficiency industry. And I would like I believe that the Focus on Energy plays a big role in that. So thank you for the work that you do. And thank you for sharing this information with us. We are moving to the next session of the panel, which is our Q&A. We're going to be looking at questions from the audience. Then I will be calling on you to answer some of these questions. So the first question we have is, where do people go to get the resources that they need from Focus? Can you unpack the different programs that exist and the different types of business programs? And how do you get started? Kyle, if you would like to answer that question, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually just revamped our Focus on Energy website as well in the past week or two here. So if you haven't been to the website at all yet, it might look a little bit different than what you're used to, but hopefully it's a lot more easier to navigate. I find it is much easier to navigate than it has in the past. So our website includes tons of links to either specific market sectors or business types, and tons of different resources as far as brochures or energy efficiency, scavenger hunts, things like that. It even kind of teaches you a little bit more about specific technologies like HVAC or lighting. So really the website, the focusonenergy.com website is a great tool that has tons of different resources that you can learn about energy efficiency, maybe get some ideas about, the next project you might want to pursue. And of course, the contact information on the Focus on Energy website would be the great next step to just feel free to reach out. We'll get you in touch with an energy advisor and they can help out with the rest of your project.
Thank you for that, Kyle. So thinking about some of the other things that you guys share, the resources that are available and the programs that exist for people to save energy and businesses to save energy. Geri, do you have anything to add in terms of places where people can get started?
Sure, I can speak specifically to what we have in place. So relative to eMobility and energy within our organization, we do have a team of individuals that work on our grants and incentives opportunities. So really looking at the federal, state, and local jurisdictions relative to monies that are available. Obviously, that's ever changing, and availability depends sometimes on first come, first served basis. But that is a part of our assessment when we're looking at opportunities for clients to be able to help them understand any monies that might be available to help them offset their investment.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
We got a question for Joe, and this
Can I add on to that real quick?
Yes, absolutely.
Real quick, also for educational part, believe it or not, if you go to the utilities website, whoever your utility is, or just pick We or WPS, honestly, if you go to the kids section, it's a great beginner for talking up it, and it's not, don't be embarrassed clicking on it, but the basic information of how the utilities are and how they read and how it's produced and all that is actually very good. We use it all the time.
That is fascinating. Thank you for adding that. Something I have to try myself. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. We have a question from Joe. which I think is probably a follow-up on the question that Kyle answered earlier. But Joe says, I'd like to trade my 2016 heat pump for a higher efficiency heat pump and donate the old one to Habitat for Humanity. Can Focus on Energy Trade Alike facilitate that process? Also, I'd like to determine what efficiency numbers can I can achieve on my old heat pump.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Heat pumps are, if this is for a business, the heat pumps would potentially be eligible for incentives. I think this is probably for a residential home situation, which the residential program does offer rebates and incentives for heat pumps as long as they meet certain minimum efficiency ratings. So, you'd have to reach out, ask some specific trade allies from Focus on Energy that work on the residential side for HVAC. They can help out with the application process and everything like that. Donating the old one to Habitat would be great. As far as determining the efficiency of the old unit versus the new, really that could probably just be done just by taking note of the model numbers, the specific model number of the unit. A lot of the times our energy advisors are using model numbers of equipment, finding the specification sheets online and comparing, the efficiency ratings. So if you can, figure out what the model number is of the old unit versus the new unit, we might even be able to do a comparison and come up with some estimated energy savings too. So.
Thank you, Kyle. Joe brought a very good point because heat pumps are something we are looking at right now a lot. There are incentives for heat pumps in the Inflation Reduction Act, and the technology has advanced significantly. I personally believe there is a great opportunity to bring more heat pumps to the state now that cold climate heat pumps are a solution that works in Wisconsin. So, yeah, interesting that we kind of switch it to electrification. And one of the sectors that I think there is a good opportunities for rural customers. As most of you know, Wisconsin doesn't produce any petroleum or gas. So we send a lot of dollars out of the state to purchase natural gas, propane, and oil. So being able to transition some of those gas or propane furnaces to heat pumps would help us keep some of those energy dollars in the state. I am curious to know what opportunities exist in Wisconsin right now to do beneficial electrification, installing heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, electric appliances, and we can start with you, Kyle.
Sure. Yeah, you had mentioned rural customers specifically, and just ways to benefit them as well, especially moving to electrification. So Focus on Energy does occasionally offer some special incentives, special programs. In the past, we've had actually rural specific offerings and bonus offerings for customers in those rural eligible zip codes. So, I think in the future, it's definitely going to be, a facet that Focus on Energy wants to try to pursue a little bit more as far as electrification and potentially even fuel switching in the future. But, definitely some opportunities to move to that as well.
Thank you, Kyle. Geri, are there any opportunities in terms of electrification that we should be looking at?
I think the biggest thing right now, a lot of effort has been focused around lighting in the past. When you look at where we have opportunities relative to lighting, I think for eMobility, just looking at that end-to-end solution and really understanding the demand to know if the current capacity in the system is appropriate, or if we do need to look at some type of distributed energy source. That I think is something that's still not quite mainstream in the industry, but definitely something we're watching to be able to incorporate into that space as the industry prepares for it.
Thank you. I'm curious, Tim, if you have any additional information opportunities that may be available right now for electrification.
It's funny how it comes full circle. And I'll real quickly, because I remember owning a old farmhouse, and there was screw and fuses up in the attic, and there was a battery bank there. There was a point in time where out in the rural communities, that was the only way to get electricity, was through windmills and that. And being able to, so tying it all back, putting in some of the renewables, putting in the microgrid, but it's very hard to overcome it all. So by reducing how much you're consuming increases your percentage that you're overcoming with that electrification, putting solar panels up, but only having a little percentage, you get to increase that percentage by reducing the load.
Thank you for that. We got another question here. Great question from the audience. What are the biggest results that you have seen from your work? And we can start with you, Geri. Can you share some of the things that you're most proud of the work that you do?
I think, and I was going to save this for the end, but that's a great question. Just being a part of an organization who's really practicing what we preach. So that investment in the vehicles that you talk about, we've got some microgrids operating some of our facilities and some of our clients' facilities that are really starting to prove out the methodology. There are a lot of numbers, we need to put the math problem together to be able to really see what makes sense. But I think when we can look at a solution similar to what we did for Bergstrom and what we've got in place for other clients to see, yes, we're adding a significant load to the grid, so to speak, but we're also taking that opportunity to add the energy play to it and really decrease that overall demand. So seeing it come to life in real time, I think has been pretty exciting in my short time in the eMobility space.
Yeah, thank you. That sounds pretty exciting. Tim, would you like to share some of the biggest wins that you've seen from your work?
Sure. So I've been doing this for 12 years as my own company, but I did my first energy efficiency project back in 1997 when I got out of the Army. So I've seen a few things. Some of the most notable ones is a project in Coachella, California, where originally was only going to put solar up on the roof, and it was going to be about 4% of the total load. And by really integrating things like daylighting and controls and dealing with the battery chargers, that solar system ended up contributing to about 46% of the load just by being smart. And it didn't take much extra work. Probably the other most notable wins are when you can change the culture in the company where people actually hold each other accountable and police each other's activities with controlling the electricity, natural gas, or water that's being in the facility. And what used to be a discussion about, say, years ago, even 2-3 years ago, saying water's cheap, no big deal, people are actually worried about it. And we should be. Right. There's not a lot of it out there. And it is a protected resource. So we should be watching it really closely. But the notable win is the culture shift in organizations.
Right.
Yeah, I think, one thing to add to that, I probably, we've got a couple of other initiatives. I mentioned the facilities, in our, up in northeastern Wisconsin, we've got a facility for clients that was built on the lake. It's completely off grid. It uses those distributed energy products to be able to power the facility. And then obviously now that we're adding EV infrastructure into that, looking at how, the off grid, how we behave in that facility, I think has changed some of our behaviors, just knowing how that building is being operated. The other thing here more locally to the Madison area, we have a renewable natural gas facility over in Middleton, and seeing how that facility operates and how they utilize pretty much everything coming into the building in a very responsible manner is really exciting to be a part of. So it definitely changes behavior when you start to see and understand how your own footprint can impact it.
Yes, and can I add to that? The coolest part is it's contagious. Yeah. So what they learn at work, they take home, or what they learn at home, they take back to work. and they want to share it and they want to communicate it. And people are very getting very passionate about it from all facets of people. It's contagious.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Spillover effects of doing the right thing. So no, thank you for sharing that. You answered the next question I was going to ask related to how is this type of work impacting the workforce. But I want to go, before we move on to the next question, I want to go back and ask you, Kyle, do you have anything to share in terms of the wins that you have seen from your work, or how this has also, what spillover effects have you seen from that?
Yeah, it's actually interesting. We actually track that a little bit through Focus on Energy internally. If we go through a certain project and a customer is extremely happy with the outcome of it, we'll continue to help them with monitoring and verifying some of the energy savings. And I've actually personally been part of multiple large check presentations and events that these companies might have for the public, just to promote and kind of show off their achievements with energy efficiency. So it's always interesting to just see the shift of people thinking and just noticing that this is really truly impactful, not only to the environment and everything, but just their bottom line and the way that their business is going to operate for the rest of the future. So it's always fun to be a part of those really truly successful projects like that.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So trying to kind of summarize the process in my head because we have shared a lot of information about the resources that are out there and the opportunities that are out there for businesses to save money. So it sounds like, we have to take advantage of the Focus on Energy program, so reach out to Focus on Energy, identify what resources exist, and identify a partner, either a company like, Tim's or Geri's, to kind of walk with you through that process of understanding what you need to do in terms of your investment and making sure that you are getting what you want out of your investments.
There's an additional benefit, and that's branding of the company as well. By seeing all this, yes, there's energy savings, and yes, it's good for the environment and that, but there's also, with this talent war, it's great for branding. You have talent walking through the facility. If they see electric vehicle charging stations, they see solar panels, they see that the places run efficiently, that attracts people, and that weighs in on their personal convictions, if that's a company they want to work for or not. So that is an additional thing a company can think about making that investment, also in reducing their recruitment costs.
Right. So thank you for bringing that up. So I'm hearing you say, making these investments not only saves you energy, but it will save you cost in recruitment and retention, because the smart people want to work with you and stay with you. So that is it's a win-win-win. Excellent. I just because we're in a moment where there seems to be a lot of support for energy efficiency and clean energy, I think we cannot have this conversation without talking about the Inflation Reduction Act. So I would like to ask if you can offer any insight into what type of incentives or opportunities exist for customers and businesses in Wisconsin through the Inflation Reduction Act. Geri, do you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, honestly, we're still unpacking what that means and what that includes and doesn't include. Specific to eMobility, there are dollars available under the act. However, there are definitely, it's a case-by-case basis. The coverage that they'll provide in certain areas really is dependent on what work is being done. So I had mentioned that grants and incentives team. So when we learn of an opportunity and we are having some of those early conversations, sharing specific information about the scope of work and the location of the work is important to be able to help them understand what some of that, what those terms and conditions might mean to their specific facility.
Excellent. Thank you. Tim, from your line of work, what opportunities might be there from the IRA?
So that, unfortunately, I'm not as fluent as I should be. We've just been so busy in our team. I unfortunately did not get a debrief from my team on everything going on. So fortunately, I got to pass it on to somebody else to answer that.
Kyle, can you share about some of the opportunities that might be available through the IRR for focus?
Yeah, sure. I know that the homes rebate program and the high efficiency electric home rebate program, so both residential sides for Focus on Energy, did receive authorization to provide funding distributed through the state energy offices. So those are authorized, I believe, but nothing's really officially open to customers yet. And we don't currently really have an estimate on timeline for, when individual states might be able to, start this flow of funding through programs for businesses or commercial side. So more information probably coming soon. We're definitely keeping a close eye on it, like Geri said. So, keep an eye out there for news, but nothing quite yet.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know a lot of that information is still to be determined. There is a request for comments that came out a couple of weeks ago for the Treasury Department to see how those dollars are going to flow into communities. But there are opportunities. So I definitely encourage business owners to follow that information, to track the opportunities. I know from the electric vehicle side, which is some of the work that I do, there is a tax credit for new vehicles. There is a tax credit for used electric vehicles. There is a tax credit for commercial electric vehicles of 30% up to $40,000 for large heavy-duty electric vehicles. So definitely something to keep an eye on as we learn more about ways to bring those dollars into our communities to support clean energy and clean energy jobs. All 71,330 something clean energy jobs was the number I read yesterday for Wisconsin. So definitely looking forward to seeing that number grow and seeing families and businesses benefit from the energy savings that come after that work. So thank you all for the answering the questions. We are about to move into the next session of the panel, and you will have an opportunity to share with the audience something that you would like to take away from this conversation. If there is one thing you want them to remember, this is the thing that you want them to take home with them. So we're going to start with you, Tim, if you want to share what that action would be.
So the biggest thing is to create a plan. Just stop. Don't chase shiny objects. Don't, read an advertisement and think, let's go tackle that. Let's create a plan. We need to be able to get the baseline information for your business. What are all the assets? And assets are anything that's hardwired in, not wire plugged in. You can do that too. But anything that is consuming water, natural gas, and electricity. Note it. What is it? How often is it being used? Things like that. Because that also plays in the sales tax credits and a whole bunch of other stuff that's going on with your consumption. Then go all the way to the end. What's your goal? Is it a 5% reduction, 3%? Is it greater than that? How much opportunity do you have? And you'll only be able to get that when you're walking around getting all those assets. Then treat it like a business. Figure out what is the mission, the vision, who are the resources you need to have towards it, what's an adequate time frame, what are you going to do with that savings? Are there additional savings such as recruitment that you can do? Really find as many possible benefits. Another one is safety. Usually plays a huge part into the utility consumptions as well, because those machines are safety related. Then, get a small team, but don't try to do it by consensus in the whole organization. Get a small team, somebody who's going to facilitate it, and then you need the doers that are going to do it. And create a plan, and guess what? You will make mistakes, but mistakes are the learning opportunities. And being able to keep track of the list of the projects that are no-go are just as important as the projects that you're going to do, so you don't waste time reviewing those projects in the future. Not until situations change. So it's achievable. It's pretty exciting what you can do when you look at it from a cultural perspective and teach teach internally and potential candidates what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's really, really good. I actually got a lot of takeaways from what you just shared. One thing that kind of like it really caught my attention is this idea of treating these investments as a business, right? And I think that in the past, where energy efficiency and renewable energy was kind of these expensive technologies, we used to think about energy efficiency and renewables as an expense. But I think we're at a point where we can think about energy efficiency, especially, and renewable energy as an opportunity, because we can save money by doing the projects. And this is money that, as you mentioned earlier, these savings are going to be there forever. So it's something that it's not expense. It's an opportunity. You also mentioned this idea of finding the champions within your organization, and learn from your mistakes. So sounds like you want to add something.
Yes, it's one of the last bills that you receive that has no double check, right?
Right.
It just gets automatically approved and automatically paid. And people think it's just a cost of doing business, but you actually do have control over it.
Right. You can't save money from your bill. Energy is not a fixed cost, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and separating, you're 100% right. When you're doing those when you're recording the assets, you're part of, and I'm happy to share our spreadsheet with anybody that wants it, but we have our own app for keeping track of it instead. But knowing which of those assets are fixed cost versus variable is crucial, because you want to move everything that's fixed to become variable, and then you want to reduce that variable expense.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. If we could move to the next slide, we'll give Kyle an opportunity to share his takeaway.
Yeah, sure. So at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I do just want to make sure people are utilizing the Focus on Energy website and resources there. Focus on Energy is here to help verify or validate the energy efficiency endeavors you're trying to make. We're not salesmen. We don't actually sell any products necessarily. We don't sell our services. So we're here to help move your projects forward, and just give you our advice and knowledge and expertise. So Tim's advice of starting an energy team, if that's a path you're going to take, include your Focus on Energy rep, your advisor, on those meetings. Any potential product or projects that might come from those meetings, if you can get the energy advisor included in that discussion right away, they can also help you figure out the energy savings, the payback period, the anything like that, the potential incentives. So if a project's going to save energy, either electric or gas, there's a great chance that it's going to be eligible to receive some sort of financial incentives from Focus on Energy. So reach out, utilize the program, as much as you possibly can.
Thank you, Kyle. You mentioned pretty much anybody will be eligible to use the services. Is there a way for people to check if you're eligible to participate in the energy efficiency in the Focus on Energy program?
Great question. Yes, actually, on the website, we do have a section for participating utilities. So if you have if you're purchasing your energy from a participating utility with Focus on Energy, you are eligible to receive incentives. It goes for nonprofits as well. I get that question quite often. So churches or YMCAs, things like that, they can also receive financial incentives from Focus on Energy. So keep that in mind.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And finally, Geri, here's your opportunity to share your takeaway. What do you want us to take from this presentation?
Sure. Thank you. First of all, I'm going to check out some of those local utility kid sections and see what I can learn. So I think thanks for that tip, Tim. I think from our perspective, much like most homeowners, most businesses don't really understand their current energy profile. So I think that assessment on the front end, really to help you understand where you're using energy, where you're using electricity today, can help you know where your power is going. And then from there, are there specific facility improvements that can be made? Is there a particular piece of equipment that's drawing a lot of power? Really understanding that usage can help us figure out what needs to be corrected inside of the building. And then from there, how do we really determine what to do with the rest of it? Is it worth the investment for other distributed energy resources to be able to offset additional demand? And then I know a lot of my content today was around the eMobility program. I think specific to eMobility, there's a lot of concern today and probably in most industries about supply chain and timing and equipment availability, some of those types of things. So when it comes to a project like that, the first thing we try to do is stress that importance of the upfront planning and really being mindful of the time that it takes to pull some of this stuff together. We found that upfront, that early involvement and that conversation at the beginning can really help to steward expectations on what the overall project can look like. So I think that's probably a couple pieces of advice, but appreciate the opportunity to share that.
Thank you so much, and I want to thank you all the speakers for the great presentations and these very engaging conversation. Love talking about this stuff and learning more about opportunities to help businesses save dollars in energy and support the local economies through jobs in the clean energy space. With that, I want to pass it back to Tom to complete our panel. Thank you so much.
Super. Thank you, Francisco, and thank you, panelists. Lots of great suggestions and insights and examples, tangible examples for people to take away from this. So that wraps up this webinar, but there is one more webinar in our Small Business Energy Awareness Month series. That one's going to be hosted next week by Wisconsin Sustainable Business Council with a spotlight on solar energy and case studies of businesses that have added solar. And that's available through our energy awareness flyer or on the WSBC website. It's also on the CUB events calendar. Thanks again to our great panelists and to our promotional partners. That ends today's webinar. Thank you.